Okay, so we're gonna take off where we left off in the last video. We have our clothes that we designed in Marvelous Designer. I've decided I'm going to do a quick retopology video. I might break this up into several videos showing the different ways you can retopologize. Although I'm going to show you my very favorite way. It's the fastest way, and I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It may not be the absolute best way. The best way is always totally manually retopologizing something, but time is money, and believe me, is this new plugin that came out in August is absolutely wonderful. You may have already seen, I've done another video on it already. You might have seen it. Okay, so I'm going to show that one, and I might do other videos, break it up into other videos where another video I might show you how to manually retopologize it in Maya, a quick way, and another, but it's not nearly as good as the way I'm going to show you right now. And then I'll show you another way, which is, I think, is the absolute best way to retopologize, which is Sketch Retopo. And you get the best, absolute best results that way. But like I said, time is money, and the way I'm going to show you right now using Quad Remesher is by far the fastest, and if you do it right, you can do it pretty efficiently. You know, have something that's fairly low poly, but that looks high poly, as long as you put the as long as you have a high enough definition in the areas that you really need. You know, dense enough topology in the areas where you really need it to be, so that it looks high poly, but it really isn't. That's the holy grail of making clothes. So, okay. So here we have our mesh. You know, first thing I would do is, since this says -90, I'm always a stickler for you know, freeze transformation, you know, and delete history. Okay, so we want to retopologize this. Okay, let's hide the skeleton. We don't need the skeleton. Let's put the body on its own layer. Body. You can name it whatever you want, and we'll hide it as well for now. Okay. So we have our mesh from Marvelous Designer, and we are going to be using Quad Remesher, and after it's installed you have a little new shelf, and here's Quad Remesher. Okay, Quad Remesher is a plugin that you can buy. Try the demo first, see if you like it. You can get the indie license, which you're not supposed to use for commercial purposes, so you're not I don't know if what it's kind of a gray area. I don't know if what the owner of Quad Remesher would consider what we do in Second Life commercial, because you're only making, if you're selling clothes, you're only making $1 or $2 per item that you're selling. I don't know if that would be considered commercial or not. But so the non-commercial version, or the indie version, which I don't understand that term indie. I think indie games, and to me that's people making thousands of dollars making indie games for the iPhone or for smartphones, you know, or even PC games, but are considered indie games. So I don't know why they call it an indie license. It doesn't make sense to me. But they don't really go into a real. To me, it's why call it an indie license if it's not for indie games? So it's a little confusing. So anyway, the indie license is $60 or $59 and like 99 cents or something like that. And if you want to get the commercial license, it's $120. Or it's like $159.99. Oh no, $119.99, something like that. So it's rounded up. It's $120. but get the demo and try it out. See if you like it. I love it. I think it's fantastic. Okay. So I'm going to soften the edge of these mesh first. Although it looks like it has soft edges right now. It's not showing soft edges on my display. So I'm just going to go to polygons, normals. I'm using Maya 2015, and it's the Quad Remesher goes from I think 2014 all the way through 2020, Maya 2020. Okay, so I'm going to soften edge, and I have a display setting in my preferences so that soft edges are displayed as dashed lines. Okay, so what I like using as far as settings is we're going to use hard edges as the guides, and I'm going to turn off this. I've played around with this and found out that it's probably better to have this turned off. So I'm just using the hard edges for the guides as to where the edge loops are going to go. And especially with Marvelous Designer, it's really super easy. So you come here to open up the UV editor. And bring that over. And you'll see that these are the flat 2D pattern that I made. Those are our UVs. If I go to UV and select everything, and then go to select border shell, see, it just has those selected. And then if I go to select, convert selection to contained edges, now we have that seam selected. And if we go to harden edge, now the border edges are always hard automatically, or not the border edges, these open edges here to the holes, you know. But what it did is it gave us a nice hard edge on here and then on here, and that will act as a guide. Okay, and I often find it very useful to have a hard edge that runs straight up and down the middle. So I'll show you how to do that. So I just click on that, and I go to the right, click on right to get this view right here. Window display. Oh, the grid is showing, but I don't know why it's not visible. Show. Normally you can see the grid, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so then you come in here into polygons, and you want the cut faces tool. So you want the cut faces tool, and it's like you cut faces using a plane. So you click on that, and what that does is somewhere off of the mesh, you don't really want to be on the mesh, you hold down your left mouse button, and you can see you can slice through your mesh. See, it's on an angle. Okay, but if you go down and you hold the shift key, it will snap. It snaps to 45 degrees. So that's straight up and down. Let go of the mouse while still holding down the shift key, and we get a nice edge going straight up and down. And then if you click here to the poly cut, and you come here on the y-axis, let's move this out of the way. This is the y-axis, left and right. You come here to the y-axis and you put that to 0. That will be dead center in in the mesh. Now we can see that when we created this, it was a little off. So you could come in here and try to find the center. Okay. To that, or we could have zoomed in when we made it. Okay. So we see we're a little bit off back here too, but see, it's sliced all the way through the mesh. So let's undo this. Okay. And this time, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to come here and we're going to go to faces. We'll select just these faces. And we're going to go to the top. And now if we come here to the cut faces tool, and if we get real close, slice directly down right through that. Now we're at that point. Okay, I might move this slightly off. There we go. Okay, and yeah, everything looks good. Cut plane, rotate X, -90. No. That was messed up. There we go. Got it back. Okay. And it's might have been better to come here to the top and have done it through here, the orthographic view, when we cut it. Let's Control Z back. So that when you're in the orthographic view, because it's doing it from the camera's angle. So we did there. A little off. That's better. Okay, and yeah, see now yeah, that looks good. Okay. Okay, so we cut through there, and we might as well stay in this view, and we'll go back to, yeah, we're still in face mode, right? And then we'll select this back here, and then we'll come back to here, zoom in really close. There we go. Okay. So now we have a nice straight edge going straight up and down there and there. Now we can come back to here, reset. Okay, go back into object mode. Okay, so now what we can do is we can harden those edges. So we go back into edge mode, double click, and I'm going to rotate back around, hold the shift key, double click, and then I'm going to harden the edge. Okay, so now these hard edges here, 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 in the back, and on the side are going to be the guides, along with the border edges, or the edges of here. So these are all going to act as guides when it does the quad. So, okay, so a shirt like this, I'd probably start off with like 1500. And you could try adaptive size. I like having this set at 100. Default is 50. But 100 it'll try to concentrate more polygons where they're needed, like on this fold here. Okay, and you just click Remesh. Oh, got to be in object mode. Click Remesh. And boom. Now that's a bit high, I think. So let's, oh, so what you do is you Control Z. Now when you Control Z, what it will do is it will bring back the original mesh, but it will also leave the mesh that we just did. So, and you can see that this mesh is for 2,455 vertices, or 4,722 triangles. That's a bit high. Yeah, it's a bit high. So we can try this without adaptive quad count on there and see what happens. That's much better. That's much, much better. Okay. And you can see it keeps the quads more dense where they need to be. You know, it keeps them more dense where they need to be and less dense where they don't need to be. So it's much, much more efficient. And instead of over 4,000 triangles, now this is only 2,600. And if we Control Z again a couple of times, there's the original. There's the one that we just did, so we might want to set that aside. And you can play around with, you know, like you say, well, I wonder what happens if I make this soft instead of having it hard. So, we can either select the edges like we did before, or you can select an edge, and these won't double click to select the whole edge. So you can go select contiguous edge and soften edge. And we'll do the same thing over here, if I can see it. Select contiguous edge. Normals, soften edge. Or I could have hit G on the keyboard just to redo it. So then we can come here to object mode and we can see what that gives us. Not bad. You know, it's a little bit smoother here. You know, a little bit smoother here. The only negative side is, let me Control Z. Here we go. Okay, so if we have the original one selected, so if you really wanted to use these UVs, you could, especially with this one, because all the edges that make up the UV islands are identical. So we could transfer the UVs from this mesh, the original mesh, over to this mesh, and you would have the same exact UVs. Now you'd have to move these UVs down into this gray area here, or dark gray area here, because to be correct, this one here is straddling this border, so you want it inside, completely inside a square, one of these working areas. Okay. So let me show you a couple more. Okay, so let's do a couple more. One of the things that you have to be aware of is you need a little bit more topology in the breast area, because Second Life has sliders and you can make your breasts bigger or smaller, but mainly it's bigger. If we were to use this density, and this might actually be okay. This is fairly dense right here, so this might actually be okay. You wouldn't know until you rigged it and you tried to see what the breasts looked like when you changed the sliders and made them bigger. It may not be enough. It looks like it just might be enough. But say you wanted to make it denser. Okay, so I'm going to show you the other things you need to know. Okay, so if you need to make it denser, you come up here to color. You come up here to come down here to, where is it? Paint Vertex Color tool. Click on the options. And okay, right now this is set so that the density is just going to be the normal density. 1 is normal. So you're going to want to at least make it 2 or 3. Let's try with 2 first. So you hit 2.0 and you notice it changed the color over here. So it changed the color there, because what we're going to do is we're going to paint on this mesh. Wherever it's this color pink, it's going to increase the density. of the mesh in that area. And it doesn't have to be super accurate. I try to make it symmetrical on both sides. You could probably paint with symmetry. I'm assuming Maya can do that. I've never actually done it. Paint with symmetry, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere. Okay. So now that we've painted our breast areas, and we turned on use vertex colors for quad density, that increases the resolution. You click remesh it, and let me Control Z to get back the original. There we go. Go to select mode, select it, I'll drag it, we'll compare. Okay, so now we have much more dense in here, and this would probably be just fine. This probably would be just fine, but you'd have to try it, you know. So you can paint the density of the areas. If we wanted the folds to be a little bit more detailed, which honestly you don't, you know, you could paint a little here if you wanted more density. But they're just fine. And believe me, this would be a pretty efficient mesh in Second Life compared to what most people do. So this isn't bad at all. But I usually like the seams running down the sides. So if you wanted the seams down the sides, again, you would go into edge mode. And like I said, while this seems like a lot of work, compared to manually retopologizing it, it's very, very fast. I'm just selecting these, shift selected both sides, and then I'm going to say select contiguous edge, normal is hardened edge. Okay, so now those edges are hardened again. And like I said, this is just where you can experiment a lot and see what you get. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z to get back my original, because I like doing multiple versions to see what it looks like. Not too bad. It's this area down here that I'm not super thrilled about, but we can soften the edge. Yeah, it's not great right in that area. I'd like it to be a little bit smoother. You know, so it's give and take. You play around with it a little bit to decide what you want to do. I'm going to be doing another video on how to bring in, if you do get 3D Coat. Like I said, 3D Coat's one of my favorite softwares. You can use 3D Coat to relax and get better edge flow than you're getting right off of here. You know, we might even be able to relax this in Maya. There is a relax in Maya that might make this a bit smoother so that you don't get that. But that's barely noticeable. But if we relaxed it a little bit, like I said, I think we can do that in Maya as well. Relax it. I just love 3D Coat because it has more than just relaxing it. You can push the edges and here and there and get even better edge flow. But this is not too bad. Okay, the other thing you can do is, let me move this out of the way. The other really great thing that you can do to create guides is you can use the interactive split tool. interactive split tool and say you want a different edge flow around her breasts, right? So you could start off here and cut a new edge. Which is what I'm doing. So if you had a fold or a wrinkle that wasn't being quite followed that well, let's hit delete to undo the last one. You could come in here and cut an edge. A bit more. Okay, and then hit enter, and it automatically makes the edge hard, which is nice, although we need to make this edge hard to complete the loop. Okay, normal is harden edge. Okay, so now that there's going to be an edge flow that follows this exactly. So let's see what we get when we get there. There we go. So you get a nice edge flow that follows that exactly. You know, so you could try all sorts of things. You could come in here and let's move this one out of the way. You could say, okay, you could come in here and we're going to cut an edge flow that follows this past the seam. Okay, and then we could run it again, and that didn't necessarily help. That didn't really help at all. So you got to kind of play with it, you know, and see what appears to work, what appears not to work, you know. We could come in here and we could try to say, okay, what if we don't have that edge going all the way down? Run it again. And that's better. And we still have our edge coming down here. And we transfer we could still transfer the UVs. They wouldn't be identical, exactly identical. It'd be a little different right here. You know, like I said, you just got to play around with adding edge flow, adding guides. Let me get rid of this. Let's get rid of what the heck? Let's get rid of that. Okay. Of course, we can always do this. We can always wait. Oh, there we go. Okay, got back to normal. Okay. Oh, I thought I did. Okay, wait. There we go. Okay, now we're back to normal. Okay, so we have that there. You can always, after you make the edge, you can always come back here, double click. Oh. Select contiguous edge. Normal, soften edge. Get rid of it. if you don't feel like undoing that far back, but see what I mean? The borders always stay, or the edges along the openings always stay hard no matter what. Okay, so you can cut in edge loops. You can use the split tool. Yeah, I showed you how to do that. You can try, what if we make that soft? Not too bad. See, that's why I like having the edge loop going straight up and down. Yeah, I'm not real thrilled with this back here either. Did it help us with the side thing? No, not really. So you can play with adding edge loops that are hard to use as guides, and you know, till you get one that you really like. Like that one's just fine. You know, that would be probably just fine. That one is just fine. Like I said, it's a give and take. Like I said, it won't have the same UVs, but if you create your own UVs, you can you don't have to worry about transferring the attributes over. Okay, so I'll show you how to do the transferring attributes real quick. Okay. Okay, so let's say we're going to use that one because this one has the cut along the side, and it looks pretty nice. It has decent amount in here. I think this is like the very first one we did. Let's do another one here. Let's do that and just remesh it. Okay. Oh, I did keep it. Oh well, we just redid it anyway. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm going to Control Z to get back to the original. There we go. Okay, so we want to transfer the UV pattern from there, from the original to the one we just did, to this one. Oh, wait a minute. I don't like that one. Okay, let's bring it over. Let's bring this one over. Bring that back over. Okay, so we want to bring it over. So this is the one that goes straight up and down the middle. Oh, wait a minute. Why is that so far off? Delete. Oh, that's because that's off. I accidentally moved it. Okay. Let's do this again. Okay, so I got both front and back selected. Harden edge. Go to object mode. Remesh it. Okay, so that's what we want. We Control Z to get back the original. Okay, this is what we want. Okay, so we're going to transfer. I keep moving it by accident. Transfer these UVs over to here. So first you select the original, shift select the duplicate, okay, and you can do that in the outliner if you really needed to. So there's the original, there's the retopologized one. So you can click on that first, that's the original. Then hold down the Control key, not Shift. If you hold down the Shift key, it selects all the mesh in between. So click on the original, hold down the Control key, left click on the retopo, and so you have to do it in that order because we're transferring from one to the other. Okay, then come here to Mesh, Transfer Attributes, open up the options. Make sure that position is off, vertex position off, normal is off. You just want UV set current, and you want it set in color off. You want it, excuse me, I need a cough. Okay, so you want the sample space to be set to world, and I'm just using these are just the default settings over here, and you click apply. Okay, now if we click on our retopologized mesh. There you go. Exact same UVs as the original. Okay. Now, what you do want to do is after you do that, select one or both. Well, select one or both of them, and you want to delete history. Because if you don't, they'll stay. There'll be a node that connects the two. And if you move one or the other, the UVs will update and they'll get messed up. Okay, so now we have the same exact UVs as we had before. Now we can do something like take these and move them down into their proper position. You know, you could position them so they take up less space. You know, or you could, if you're going to have two different materials, you could scale them up. It's a little bit too big. Whoops. So you could scale them up to be the size. Now, Second Life doesn't care that this one is outside this dark gray area. You know, it doesn't. Second Life doesn't care. Other programs such as Substance Painter and 3D Coat do care if the UVs are outside that dark area. So UVs, normal UVs, are from 0 to 1 on the y-axis and 0 to 0 to 1 on the v-axis and 0 to 1 on the u-axis. So this is v, this is u. They all want, so Substance Painter, 3D Coat, they all want the UVs to be contained within that grid from 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. Second Life doesn't care. As far as Second Life is concerned, -1 to 1 and -1 to 0 is as if these UVs were sitting right here. You know, Second Life doesn't care. But like I said, Substance Painter and 3D Coat do care. But now we could, I like having them separate when I'm working on them in Maya and in Second Life before I export them out to Second Life, just because it's so much easier to, you know, select this and create a Lambert, and now you have a different material. You know, and it's much easier visually to understand where things are versus having, you know, if we were to go like that and move it over one whole space and have them right on top of each other, makes it real hard to select them and to do things, you know. So this little thing here, newer versions of Maya may not have this, but this just moves everything over one complete square, you know, working, I don't know what you want to call that, UV space, one whole UV space. Like I said, and it wouldn't matter if it was up here or over here, or if it was two spaces over. Second Life doesn't care. Yeah, Second Life doesn't care as long as they're in whole steps, you know. So you might end up with a bunch of different UV shells or UV islands, and you want them all spread out. That's called tiling. Second Life doesn't care about tiling, but other programs do, especially 3D Coat. I haven't worked enough in Substance Painter to know for sure if Substance Painter, I think I've been told Substance Painter doesn't like it either, that it wants everything contained within 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. And so, but after you've created a material, you could, before you export it out as an OBJ, just make sure it's so you're going to say you're going to texture in 3D Code or Substance Painter. Just make sure all your UVs are in the same UV space from 0 to 1 and 0 to 1. Okay. So now what would happen if we take one of the others that doesn't have the thing on the side? I'll show you what happens. And this is turning into a 40-minute long video, but this is a little bit more in-depth. So, okay, so if we go in back in the object mode, and let's take, come on, okay, so let's get that out of the way. Now let's find one of the others. Okay, that one has a seam on the side. This one doesn't have the seam on the side. Okay, let's put this back to 0. So it's right on top of the other one. Okay, let's go in the outliner. So if you're not sure which one that was, just select them both. And you can see that's the original, because the oldest mesh is always going to be higher up. You know. So here's that's the original. And if we hold down the control key and left mouse click, just like a regular mouse click, now we get the other one. So we're going to do the same thing, arrow the same as before. We click apply. Okay, and it's done. Now let me bring over the UV. And that's the original. If I hold down the shift and drag, then I got the other one. Okay. And you see it is basically the same pattern, but instead of a nice smooth straight edge here, we get this kind of jaggedy thing that's going all up and down. Now theoretically, you could, if you really wanted to, you could, on this mesh, cut an edge loop running down the same along here on this one. Now the drawbacks to doing that, you know, you can either cut it manually. There's a number of different ways you can cut it so that it's identical. So that you could cut, let's see, let me move this out of the way. Oh, and remember we got to delete the history. Because if I don't delete the history, I'll show you what happens. Okay, see if I move that, that looks fine. Then look what happens here. It messes up the UVs because it's updating as you're moving the mesh. So let's Control Z back, and now, whoops, now it's normal. See if we move this, see, messes up the UVs. That's why you have to delete the history. Okay, so let's just delete history. Okay, so now we can move that out of the way. So, like I said, we could manually cut a seam following the original seam straight down to here, so that when we transferred our UVs, it would be perfect again. So it's an extra step. You will get a bunch of n-gons. N-gons are any quads. So this is called a quad. 4 sides. Triangles are okay, because this is all going to be triangulated anyway. And there's probably a couple of triangles here and there. Like there's a triangle. Although we could make this into a quad just by deleting that edge. You know, but it's going to get triangulated anyway. Second Life gets triangulated anyway. So triangles aren't that big of a deal. But n-gons are anything over any face. This is considered or a face or a polygon. This is considered a face or a polygon. Any face or polygon that has more than 4 sides is considered an n-gon. And n-gons are not good. But in Second Life, they're not necessarily that bad because they're going to be triangulated anyway. N-gons, you'll end up with a lot more triangles. You know, when you triangulate a quad, it's only going to turn it into 2 triangles. When you have more than 4 sides, it's going to turn it into more than 2 triangles. And it can get really kind of messy. But I mean, time is money. And if you liked this edge flow better, because this does have really nice edge flow, you know, you could manually slice down through here. I might make a video later showing some of my favorite tools that I use that might make that a lot easier to slice, so that you get a perfect, absolute perfect match. There are some nice free tools. Like I said, I might do a video later on that highlights some of my favorite tools. And so, yeah, I'm giving away the farm. I'm giving away all my secrets, all the secrets that I would teach to my students, because I'm not really teaching anymore. And so why not make videos and really help you guys out? So, alrighty. So, okay, so now this is a 46-minute video. And yeah, so that's retopologizing in using Quad Remesher. I highly recommend it if you have the money. If you have $60 or you have $120, get this. Oh, even if you have ZBrush, get this, because being able to easily cut in guides to follow so much easier than in ZBrush. Even though it's made by the same guy who created Z-Remesher, and it does use the same algorithm, so Z-Remesher would give you a very similar results. But being able to just cut in guides real easy, and keeping everything in Maya is just so much easier. So yeah, while this was 46 minutes long, you know, how many versions did we have 5 here. I think we did like 10 different versions, and really it only take you like 5 minutes, 10 max, till you get something that was pretty decent, you know. And like I said, if you're not going to be using Marvelous Designer's UVs, which I usually don't, this would be just fine. This right here would be just fine, and it has really nice edge flow. You know, has really nice edge flow. Look how smooth that is, and it's pretty low. You know, look at this. This is only 2,455 triangles. That's considered low poly. You know, I might cut in a couple more edge loops here when I'm rigging, so that you have at least 4 here for better deformation on the shoulders. But believe me, this is pretty low poly. It's not perfect, you know. It's not as good as you could get with manually retopologizing something, but believe me, this would take you at least a half hour, 45 minutes to manually retopologize this simple top with Sketch Retopo. Now, I could probably retopologize this in Sketch Retopo, which I'm probably going to do. God, no, it'd probably take me a half hour, 45 minutes to manually retopologize this. And it would be a bit better. It'd probably be maybe 500 triangles fewer. So I could get it down a bit in the triangle count, manually retopologizing this, but it, like I said, probably take me a half hour, 45 minutes to do versus 5-10 minutes to do. And so, like I said, that's why I love this one, and I did buy it. I had the demo, loved it so much that I ended up buying it. It's highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. And if you use the settings, like I said, don't go real crazy with the triangle count. You'll be able to get something that looks high res, that is not super high res resolution. So awesome. Okay, well, now we're at the 50-minute mark. I hope this is going to be very useful, and I might either move on to rigging or creating UVs. I don't know what I'm going to be doing in the next video. So, or I might show you a different way of retopologizing. Just depends on what I'm in the mood for. So, awesome. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.